This story begins on a place that we know simply as Earth. You see, many, many years ago, two creatures crawled out of the depths of the ocean to live a seemingly better life on land. They felt the need for adventure. You see, they were the definition of the perfect specimens. They were attractive, ambitious, wise, and yet somehow strong beyond their means. This is the story of the vast empire that these two individuals eventually created. They were quick to settle in the heart of Africa and stay near the coast, for you see, it was familiar territory. They understood the ocean, but they were new to land. As one worked, slaving away, building a fire for them to stay warm and keep the creatures away, the other stood guard, knowing that if one of them died, there would be no future. Before long, they had children. These children, just like their parents, were as strong as an ox. They were ambitious as can be, and they were incredibly wise. Many would even call them geniuses. As they expanded and they had generation after generation, their small home quickly turned into a village, and one day, a kingdom. As every kingdom needs, a king. On that day, they named Iled, the first man, the king of their kingdom. They said that he was touched by divinity, touched by God himself, and that he would forever be the power and the word of the land. It wasn't long until they had returned to the place for which they first came, the sea. For they knew that the sea was full of nutrients, full of sustenance, and full of everything that could help keep them alive. They used this newfound travel to head east across the great ocean to find a new place to live. They quickly found mountains, they found desert, and they found snow for the first time in their lives. They didn't know what to do with it, but they knew that surely it was given to them for a reason. Over the years, they came up with a way to gather new food. They realized that if you take the seeds of food that exists and you plant them into the ground, you can create more food, you can create more sustenance. And they began to farm. Farming was fairly inefficient with just your bare hands, so they looked and they scavenged the world for materials that they could make into better tools to be used to enhance their process, and they began to mine. As the years passed, their population grew. It turned from 2 to 10 to 50 to well over 100 and growing. They knew that they couldn't be stopped. They had a vast world to explore, and they were just beginning. Before long, 100 years had passed since those two crawled out of the depths of the ocean to form the civilization that we know today. Their tiny village quickly grew into a vast empire of over 500 people, spanning to the edges of the globe, with plenty more room to go. Their ships have advanced. They've found stone, they've found metal, and they've only just begun. Eventually, the species as a whole grew to hate each other. They grew to split, and some of them broke away and founded a new kingdom. It was time for war. The two kingdoms sent their armies at each other. They met in the middle and they clashed. Blood was spilled on both sides. The Va Imperium, the new kingdom, the rebels, they quickly swept through the land, taking more and more people until they were a formidable enemy. They all began to worry. They wondered what would become of the world. They fought back and forth over the same piece of land, over and over and over again. This was life. It was war. It was peace. It was life and it was death, repeated over and over again as generations went on. As the years progressed, more and more people began to split away from the Holy Abba. Their beliefs had changed. They no longer aligned with the people of their ancestors. They realized they're better off on their own, and they're hoping that one day they can come to peace with that. But for now, the world was in chaos, and the war continued. The people of the Holy Abba were relentless. They wouldn't let it go. It wasn't long until they had squashed several of the rebellions, but one after another they continued to pop up. People were unhappy with the way that they were living. They were unhappy with the way that things were run. But then, as the population pushed 1,300 people across the span of the world, it had happened. The Holy Abba had squished all rebellions, and the world was once again at peace. Whether the people of the lowlands and the outer country really liked it, nobody will ever know. But as far as the king was concerned, this was his land, his rule, and you will live in his country or you will die as a traitor. As the years rolled on, the world split again, and again, and again. It was never the same after that first split. People realized that they could rebel, that they could be happier in their own country, and that they were willing to give up their lives to try to bring peace to them and their children in a land where they ruled. The ground began to open up and take back these colonies and these kingdoms. Tornadoes were formed. Fires began. Lightning struck on the top of the tallest buildings. It was clear that nature was unhappy with the way that these people had treated its planet, and it wasn't going to stand for it. Suddenly, these people realized it may not be each other that we need to fight. It's the world. It's what happens outside of the world. And they began to look up. They realized, what is outside of this world? What's happening? What's going on out there? We can't be the only ones in the universe. Nearly 500 years after the start of civilization, and many, many wars, we're left with nothing but the Holy Abba Empire and a few criminals that have been sent away to a penal colony for a life of hard living, hard farming, and the struggle that makes up a desert. Nobody thought that anybody would attack from within. Nobody thought that there was anybody left to attack from outside. But they didn't look up. On that day, an extraterrestrial entered the field. Somebody that they had never seen. Somebody that they were not used to, and that they were clearly outmatched against. It first appeared in the ocean, and it moved inland quickly. They were confused, they were intrigued, and they didn't know what to do. They'd soon find out. They thought that they had defeated them. They thought that they were safe. Little did they know, that was only the beginning. More would come. More would look for their scout. More would cause chaos and death over thousands of people. You see, these people were not the same people that we had hundreds of years ago that crawled out of the ocean. These people, they are no longer wise. They have no ambition. They've lost their strength through their lazy ways. They are not the same people that we knew so many years ago. Even the tales of these heroes of past have come and gone. People don't remember the history that made up their people. And surely, this will cause the end of mankind as we know it. On New Year's Day of the year 493, they came back. At first, they hovered ominously off the west coast of the United States and South America. People didn't know what to do. They weren't sure if they were there to attack, and then they struck. Seemingly all at once, people fought back. They tried to stop them. They were clearly thousands of years more advanced, and there were hundreds of them. Just like that, they had swept through 2 continents, quickly eliminating most of the people and coming back to finish everybody else. As the western defenses of Europe and Africa began to prepare, they noticed that people came from the east. It was more of them. It was a second fleet, and they were there ready to destroy them. This fleet was twice as big as the fleet to the west. People began to take their own lives. They weren't the people of the past. They weren't wise. They weren't ambitious. They had no chance. Even if they managed to shoot down a ship, they couldn't take these aliens on. These aliens were immortal. They could regenerate health. They shot acid out of their breath and out of their spit. The people of Earth began to lose hope. One by one, their nations fell, and all they could do was scurry and hide away in fear. As time moved on, the population dwindled. Villages fell one by one, and the kingdom began to shrink. What took nearly 500 years to grow, the mighty Holy Abba Empire, was beginning to crumble in the span of a few years. This power was truly unbelievable. Many believed it the true power of the gods for steering their lives in such an immoral and oddly driven path. Still, many others perceived this as fate. They thought that there was nothing that they could do and that there was no chance left of survival, so they sat back and they watched the world crumble before them. People such as Pompey ran for their lives. They were well fed. He was a spry young age of just 26. He was ready to fight these aliens. He was ready to fight for his life. But deep down, he was crushed. He was sad. He knew that they had little to no chance. Their only chance of survival was to stick together and fight like only humans do. The remaining humans saw only one option left. Maybe it was their pride. Maybe it was just a deep down feeling that screamed, this is the way to go. But they thought if the aliens were going to take them out, they were going to have nothing left. And just like that, they hit the button and finished off the world with one giant barrage of blasts. Who knows if this was a better end? But the way that they saw it is that if they can't have it, no one can. Alright, you guys, I hope y'all dug it. That was my first ever story in Worldbox, and I had a blast doing it. I really think I'm going to do more of these. So let me know in the comments if you liked it. And if you're new to the channel, hit that sub button. Till next time, this is Aces High. I love y'all, and I'm out.